What's up, boys and girls? This is Spit Logic, and today I've got some great news. I have figured out a way to integrate my SP44 Mark II with the workflow of my MPC One Plus. So in this video, I'm going to just go over some of the settings and how I have things set up for the interaction between the SP44 Mark II as well as the MPC One Plus. Let's not waste any time and let's get right into it. So we'll just start off with a new project, and every one of my new projects start off with a drum track. Just for context, when I am using my SP44 Mark II and connecting it to my MPC One Plus, I'm using that USB-C connection on the back of the SP44 Mark II. I'm plugging that into the USB port of the MPC One Plus. Additionally, I have audio coming out of my SP44 Mark II. I'm using the headphones jack for this one, and it's going out of the Mark II and going into the MPC One Plus. So since I'm using audio for the MPC One Plus, I'm going to change this drum track into an audio track. So I'll hit that audio icon, and now it is an audio track. Down here at the bottom, you see that monitor. I'm going to turn that monitor to in. And then you want to ensure that you have the right input. And right here you see input 1 and 2. And that's where I have on my SP44 Mark II. It's the two inputs, the 1-2 input for stereo input on there. And you can just test it out to ensure that you have audio coming through, of course, and you see with it monitoring. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new track, and for the SP44 Mark II, I'm going to treat it like an external MIDI instrument. So I'm going to hit MIDI, and I have it connected as a MIDI instrument. You can go back into your main menu and then under your preferences, and if you go to where it has MIDI sync, it should show up your SP44 Mark II as some of those input devices. You want to ensure that that track is lit up. That will mean that your SP44 Mark II or whatever that MIDI device is will be able to control the information that's coming in and out on a particular track. You also have the control as well as the global control, of course, meaning it will be able to make the changes on different parameters on your MIDI device. And then global means it will be able to make those manipulations on the global settings on your MPC One Plus. Now that I'm on my MIDI track, I want to ensure that the SP44 Mark II specifically is what is going to control all the MIDI parts of this. If I hit the buttons on my SP44 Mark II right now, you don't see anything happen except for the audio coming in. But of course, if I go to my inputs and outputs, nothing on the actual MIDI track is being controlled. What you want to do is you want to go to your inputs and your outputs, and you want to dictate what inputs and outputs will actually control it. So on your input, I want to scroll until I hit SP44 Mark II. And you can see now when I'm hitting the pads, there's some manipulation going on there. So in addition to my tracks, the audio coming out of my SP44 Mark II, I also have the ability to control by using my SP44 Mark II. For coverage, I also go with the SP44 Mark II for the output portion of it. And specifically for my Mark II, I do not use the MPC as a supplement to control my SP44 Mark II. The reason for that, the primary reason for that, is that the mapping is all off between the two. So let's just go to my MPC, for example, and my MPC controls things. But you see right here, the way that I have my samples on my SP44 Mark II, it does not correspond with these 16 pads on the MPC One. As a matter of fact, I have to go to like crazy parts of here, and let me see if I can find one. But you see this one corresponds with this particular pad. So they don't match up with each other, you know, in a linear, in a logical sense. Now, typically you want to keep the channels arranged chronologically with your SP44 Mark II and your MPC One. Typically, The way that it is mapped out on your SP44 Mark II is that each of the two bank buttons are corresponded with a separate MIDI channel. In the case of this, for some reason, even if I'm on channel 2, I'm still able to make the controls, as you can see, even though it's on that particular bank. But of course, if you do have it on a MIDI channel, you want to keep any other MIDI instruments or any other MIDI inputs separate on separate channels. So we'll just stick with channel 1 for the SP44 Mark II. Now, of course, you just want to make sure that you arm that particular track and then make sure that you know what drums you want to use. And then we'll just do a quick recording of it. And what this is going to do is not going to necessarily record the audio. You're going to end up recording the MIDI controls on here. So I'll open up that arrangement window. Let's open it full screen. And if we hit record on here, and of course, now you have your portions. And of course, when it goes to overdub, you can also just add stuff to it, right? Now, I think that there are a lot of implications and a lot of applications going forward between these two devices. I'm not sure if I have fully integrated the two of them together, especially when it comes to like the audio portion and still having to rely on the audio in order to make that workflow happen. Another limitation that I do have is, since they are two separate devices, having to save what I have on the MPC One Plus as well as on the SP44 Mark II, I just have to kind of deal with the management of the different projects that I have between each of them. Of course, I become a little bit limited because in order to make the full workflow work, I have to have both of those devices together. There are times when I just use one by itself and the other by itself, but using those two together, really, they complement each other, but they are kind of tied to each other, kind of constrained, and I have to use both of them when I'm reopening up older projects. I'd be curious, just from your perspective, if any of you have done anything similar to this as far as integrating the SP44 Mark II with the MPC One Plus. Or is there another device that is kind of similar that you would use kind of like a MIDI device and using the audio inputs into the MPC One Plus to make a complete workflow? As always, I thank you for the view and I thank you for the listen. And until next time, peace.